So my name is June, better known as June July, photography by June July. I am a woman photographer. I've been in this space for about 10 years now. Wait, 10 years now. And I call myself the woman's photographer. I don't think I initially started off specifically as the woman's photographer. What happened is as I started shooting portraits. Portraits have always been my thing. And as I went on, I related so much with so many women. I would say about 90% of the people I photograph are women. And I just found myself, again, I'm a woman, they're people that I love to shoot as well. And so we just related on such a intimate level. And so now I call myself the woman's photographer. Do you know what I'll say? Family. I come from an all-girl household, and so being able to see women and how we are so diverse has always been very interesting. Second one actually is fashion. I've always really been into fashion magazines and things like that, and just seeing the creative work that people put out there is so inspiring. And the last thing I'll say is, because I've always been interested in people's stories, I found it so enlightening to be able to capture that, being able to relate to people's stories and wanting to share that with the world. So yeah. Do you know what I'll say? I have found myself in such big highs and low lows, and I feel like as women, we can all relate this. Actually, as people, we can just relate to this. Life has its ebbs and flows. And so what I found is when I am shooting, for instance, I had all my equipment stolen about like two years ago. And as I talk about it now casually, but I had my equipment stolen. And here's the thing, right? It's such a destabilizing thing as a photographer. And I found myself in a position to reevaluate, the essence of what I am, how I shoot, and things like that. And so personal experiences for me really shape also what story I'm trying to put out there. They shape how it is I'm showing up at work, whether I'm showing up jovial, whether I'm showing up, at my best, at my complete best. So yeah. Oh, the women I've captured have had such good things to say about me. Sounds a bit like, but I promise, it's just been one of those journeys where I feel like the images I've captured have allowed women to feel seen. I've had women who've come to me and have said, I never felt like I was able to let my guard down and feel as free as I could until I was photographed by you. And that is beyond encouraging. Do you know what I'll say? Feel the feelings. Powerful moments are meant to be felt. Joy is meant to be felt. I think we live currently in a time where I think we're rushing our feelings a little bit, or rather we're not sitting in them. And I'm a big believer in feeling your feelings. So whenever a powerful moment comes, I try not to avoid the feeling of I don't want to sit in this joy too long, because then it turns into something else. So anyway, that's my little personal philosophy. Oh, we have such a beautiful women community at the moment in Kenya. And it's really, really, really beautiful to be able to collaborate. It's beautiful that we're now a community. Makeup artists, stylists, artists, painters, artists beyond photographers as well, illustrators. People are moving in such a beautiful sense of community. And it's just beautiful to see. It's relation, right? It feels like I always want to feel like I can relate to what it is that you're trying to capture, because when women come to me, they don't just come to me as, hey, I just want, let's say, a corporate shoot. That might be the initial thing that they're coming for. But as we begin the shoot, we uncover maybe something they haven't seen in themselves in a while, something they wanted to capture but have just never quite gotten there. And so I feel like now then that's where I come in and we relate in the sense of, I can recognize feeling nervous in front of a camera. I can recognize wanting everything to be perfect. I can recognize wanting to see myself on stills, on photographs, the way I visualize myself internally. I can relate in that sense. So I feel like that's how we connect. It has enhanced it actually, more than even changed it. What happened is, as I was younger, I had, I think, a very skewed view of beauty. I thought about it in a commercial sense. You read your magazines, you watch your shows, you have a bit of like a misconception of what beauty is. And as you start to shoot real people with real stories, with real struggles, with stretch marks, with imperfections, with senses of like, I don't know, just a little bit of realness, if I can call it that, you then start to realize that beauty isn't like one size fits all. It's person to person, it's moment to moment. And so it's really enhanced also what I try to capture in what I find beautiful now. Because for me, then it won't just be your outward experience or outward look, it will be more than that. So it's really enhanced it. I'm elated. I will say, lights and shadows play similarly to like a painting. We use light as photographers to sculpture what it is that we're trying to showcase in the photos. For instance, if I'm trying to capture joy, and again, these are all not like a benchmark or, you know, it's not something I'll replicate every single time. But if I'm trying to capture joy and I want you all bright, all lit up, I'll probably put a light just up ahead of you, light up the backdrop, make it bright and airy so that it's a sense of joy. I could also decide to just take a light and put it to the side and maybe have this side slightly darker so that I can emit emotion, feelings of strength, feelings of power, because that's what that type of lighting does. And there are many different types of lighting. There's split, there's Rembrandt, you know, all the technicalities, but those lights and shadows are what create what you're trying to, the emotion that you're trying to capture. So they play a really big role. Light is a beautiful thing. And right now, we live in a time where we have lots of lights and we get to play with a lot of them. So for instance, I use gels. Gels are basically changing up the lighting from white light to warm light. You can change it up to red light, blue light, purple, whatever color on the spectrum you feel like. And setting the scene in that way, you're able to then express a different emotion. So for instance, if I wanted to express a sense of power, this could also be a sense of liberation. I could go red, because as we know, red is a powerful color and it's liberating. It has a sense of strength in it. If I wanted to also emit something cool and maybe just playful or something like that, I could go into the blues and purples or blues and yellows. And that's the beauty, right? Lighting is just a tool to enhance what emotion or what you'd like the vision to be. And so I think that's what highlights the female experience, using lighting at least. Honestly, for me, womanhood has always been expression. Here's the thing about being a woman. We get to be who we want to be today, tomorrow. We switch it up. And it's beautiful as a female photographer to be able to capture that. I think photography has such a powerful way of expressing where someone is at right now. Photography in that sense, for me, has always been my passion, even like more than video. Love you, my video people. But it's a moment in time that is captured in still. Everything that I'm trying to express is captured in that moment, in what you're seeing. And so for me, womanhood is being able to capture expression. What is that person feeling at this time? What does that look like for them? And what am I doing as a photographer to be able to capture that for them and as a woman? I think the two work hand in hand, actually. I think they work in tandem. I think a woman's image and essence are both beautifully captured because, yeah, like I said, they work hand in hand. When I'm posing a woman, for instance, and I tell 3 different women to pose in the same way, it's interesting because each woman will do the same thing, but not exactly the same way. I find that really beautiful because as women, each of us carry our own distinct self-image, our own identity. And I think that's beautiful and is what makes up our essence. I will, for instance, do a pose or tell you, you know what, bring your hand to your face. Like, let's say I'm doing a close-up, I tell someone, bring your hand to your face. And each woman will do it completely differently. Some will hold it here, some will bring it to the back, some will bring it to the front. And that's because each person has a distinct way of expressing themselves. So I think the two work hand in hand. I love that you're asking me this question, especially in this time, because if you're in Kenya, we know that women's rights is a conversation that has been on the forefront for quite some time now. One of my most personally impactful projects has been one I did for femicide. And I went for the rallies, and I did a photo shoot that was entitled "When Home Isn't Safe," because home wasn't safe for a lot of women. And I think photography is quite impactful because, one, we live in the digital era. There's places photos that can go that word of mouth may never reach. There's places photos can go. My photo could be sent to one person who is in UK, and that photo will traverse the planet and will carry a message. And that's what I feel about photography, especially for matters that are so impactful. It's the reach. And I think it's extremely important for women's rights and being an activist in that sense. And actually, I really want to do more in that space. So yeah, I think it's quite impactful. Do you know what I'm gonna say? Tunnel vision, my people. I think take out outward noise as much as you can. And I say this as a person who is a consumer of a lot of content. Great content, bad content. You're on all these platforms where it's like really good and it's really bad, all in the same space. So if you don't remove the outward noise, you will forget. You'll forget what you really wanted to achieve. That's why a lot of people always say, get out, go out and spend time doing nothing. Spend time doing nothing, because those are the moments that imagination comes back into play. What are you trying to evoke? What have you been trying to create, And some of that inspiration, it's not found here, it's found out there. So just tunnel vision. I will say this, it's very important for me to listen to my gut. When I'm on set, you're flowing through, essentially, you're in a flow. If there's any other way I could explain it, I'm in a flow. Once I start shooting, I'm not necessarily thinking specifically technically. I'm thinking more towards what I'm trying to capture. If that means moving in, if that means taking a top angle, if that means changing up the lighting. And so some of those decisions, as you flow, are not necessarily calculated. So I think intuition plays a big role in that sense, because then I'm able to just glide through the shoot. All I am focusing on is the person that's in front of my camera and what they're feeling in that moment. And I think that allows me to remove myself from the outward, it's environment, if there's any other way to explain it. So yeah. I think because one of the things that I'm quite keen on is creating images where people feel seen. And that is something I can relate to as well on an individual level. I think it's very important to be able to see yourself in an image and recognize, this is who I am and this is what I represent. And so in that way, because my personal philosophy is, at least a part of it, is to capture images where women feel like their stories have been heard, where they feel seen. So that, I think, is what guides me when I'm looking for concepts, when I'm looking for lighting visions of what I'm trying to create. All those different elements come into play, because then I'm thinking about how can I make this person best feel. See? I'm going to quote Kendrick Lamar and say, "We gon' be all right." Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be all right. That's what I want all women to know.